Welcome back to 1979. We kick off the spring season with a March release and a fantastic example of just how formidable Toei animation was in this era. Taro the Dragon Boy is a classical Japanese dreamscape fantasy, the type most viewers may have experienced via Kenji Nakamura's elegant Mononoke, Satoshi Kon's mind-bending Paprika, or Hayao Miyazaki's seminal Spirited Away. In a departure from those three, however, Taro the Dragon Boy relies on much more naturalistic animation and color tones to deliver its experience. Toei's animation team chose muted colors and ink-wash backgrounds to ground their narrative so that it could land close to home with audiences. There's a cold cast over everything, giving it the feeling of being ghostly and tinged with sorrow. Make no mistake, however, this film is a lot of fun to watch, and is pointedly for children. But it doesn't hold back on the gravity of its subject matter. The quest follows the titular Taro, a good-for-nothing loafer who is suddenly galvanized into looking for his mother upon learning that she was turned into a dragon shortly after his birth. On his quest, he encounters all kinds of kami, the varying celestials of Shinto belief, as well as a variety of yokai and other less beneficial monsters. These otherworldly beings and their varying transformations lend the film its primary fantastic qualities, contrasting the more grounded, if still superhuman, Taro. Underpinning all of the dreamlike events is a strong morality tale. First and foremost, the film is about using the gifts you're given for good ends. Taro has immense physical strength, but it only comes out when he's helping others. His mother was turned into a dragon for being too greedy with food and not being considerate towards her family and friends. Starvation and oppression are represented quite plainly across the entire film, and it's up to Taro, or the viewer, to do his part and help them. It's about sharing, making sure everyone has enough to eat, and not letting harm come to the people around you. And it's no coincidence that the hero is named Taro, as in Kintaro or Momotaro. Both of these are the names of mighty boys, a familiar trope in Japanese fantasy, having super strength or special powers that let them overcome great challenges and help the people around them. Taro the Dragon Boy is essentially building from their themes and ideas, tapping into the cultural zeitgeist through its references. It's a piece of distinctly Japanese fantasy that's entirely worth watching, with some of the best animation of its time to boot. It's also thankfully not locked to Japan, as this one has been available in English-speaking countries since 2006 by the way of Discotek. Next up is Mirai, Robo, Daltanious, a series largely remembered for two reasons. It was the first combining mecha series to feature a lion's head motif in its chest, an incredibly important moment for Super Robot fans, and it was originally planned to be incorporated into the Western canon of Voltron, alongside actual team picks Go Lion and Dairugger 15. Daltanious' setup is that an alien force called the Tsar Empire has been invading Japan and devastating its major cities. The government has fled to Okinawa, leaving the populace to largely fend for itself. It's somewhat reminiscent of a Harlock dystopian setup, with humanity oppressed and starving, struggling to survive amidst occupation and war. And it's a surprisingly compelling backstory, pointed at an audience a bit older than was typical for this style of show. It stands to reason that a thoughtful producer realized that most of the kids who had grown up with Mazinger Z and Brave Raideen would now be teenagers or young adults and appreciate something with more gravitas. That said, this is still a show about combining super robots, and Daltanious holds true to a lot of conventions from its time. The main characters are all young men, guided by a mysterious refugee from another planet, whose design is somewhat reminiscent of Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, albeit as being in a business suit with a stylish purple cloak. When said boys accidentally activate a spaceship belonging to the refugee, they trigger some giant towers that the Tsar Empire has left in the heart of major cities. Turns out that the towers are actually giant robots. Thankfully, the spaceship also harbors a super robot and a super aircraft, capable of being piloted by the two young men. Mere coincidence? Well, probably not, but we won't get into spoilers. The show takes a surprising amount of time to actually give us the titular Daltanious, not getting to its combination until the third episode. It takes its time to get to the standard good stuff and dedicates at least part of its episodic narrative to the horrors of war and struggles faced by civilians, which gives it a leg up on many of its simpler and more child-friendly kin. More interesting is the diversity on display in the council that controls the Tsar Empire, with insect people, plant people, crocodile people, and so on, behind the machinations to take over Japan. We stress Japan because it seems like Earth on the whole might not be experiencing invasion. Rather, the Tsar Empire has apparently chosen Japan as the focal point of its attack, leaving the island nation to beg for help from its neighbors, which has some implications. If you're thinking that Daltanious sounds like it has some themes derived from World War II, the Japanese defeat, the firebombing of Tokyo, or the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, well, you're right on all accounts. It turns out the components of Daltanious came to Earth during World War II, and the show does not shy away from depicting the firebombing of Tokyo, while conveniently leaving out Japan's role as an aggressor in the war. It's not exactly surprising for setups of this type within this era, but it at least provides couching for the show's overarching anti-war message. Next up is Maya the Honeybee. Maya the Bee started life in a book called The Adventures of Maya the Bee by Valdemar Gonzalez in 1912, and has been adapted into a dizzying number of variations since its original publication. This time it's The New Adventures of Maya the Bee, and as that name implies, this is not the first time Japanese television has seen Maya, and it definitely wasn't the best either. The show follows the regular cast of Maya, namely the titular honeybee character whose curious and naive nature makes for a charming lead in a setting dotted with whimsical insects and their stories. She's joined by Flip the Grasshopper, the straight man and more world-wise foil to Maya, Miss Cassandra, their studious teacher, and a character specific to the anime adaptations, Willy the Drone. Willy is Maya's best friend and a fellow honeybee, but far more clumsy, doubting, and hesitant than his friends. All in all, the cast are a wonderful bunch from the original, undermined by this particular outing and its preference for zany antics over a solid plot. Produced and released in Germany in 1979, this production wouldn't actually hit Japan until 1982, and was generally ill-received. Japanese studio Wako teamed up with German company Apollo Film to produce the show as a pseudo-sequel to the original 1975 series, taking a much more humorous and exaggerated approach to the source material. The original book and its initial adaptation were much more laid-back and storybookish in tone and pacing, and the shift to hyperbolic visual comedy didn't sit well with the established fanbase. As such, The New Adventures is something of a little-loved pariah to the franchise, often even bundled with the first series as a kind of second season, due to its low likelihood of selling on its own. A fun aside, Wako Productions, although short-lived, was involved in the production of a show which is the complete polar opposite of the whimsical Maya, the ultra-violent M.D. Geist, which we'll cover in a future episode. As the year marches on, child-oriented franchise Doraemon is flush with TV specials, and an all-new series that will be the foundation of a media empire still ongoing today. Originally created by the legendary manga duo Fujiko Fujio, team nickname of Motoo Abiko and the late Hiroshi Fujimoto, it was first adapted to TV in 1973, and now again in 1979. Now, some background in case you haven't heard about Doraemon. Doraemon is the name of a large, blue, earless, robotic cat who has traveled from the 22nd century to the present, where he helps a young boy named Nobita. Doraemon has an arsenal of strange gadgets and wondrous gizmos to help Nobita with things like homework, bullying, and getting the attention of his childhood sweetheart, Shizuka. Doraemon is not unlike classic American animation icon Felix the Cat with his bag of tricks, though much more bumbling than intentionally mischievous. This 1979 TV adaptation is the show that would cement Doraemon as a household name in Japan and across Asia. Where the 1973 series had failed to adapt the colorful energy of the manga, this new take captivated its young audience as well as their parents. It became a bit of family viewing experience and would go on for, I'm not kidding, 1,787 episodes. For context, the first 2 years of the show saw episodes that were just 6 minutes long, before switching over to a half-hour format in 1981. It's sometimes known as the Oyama series, owing to the name of Doraemon's actor, Nobuyo Oyama, who voiced the character until the series concluded, and I'm still not joking, in 2005. The show's episode count is a feat only superseded by 4 other shows in Japan, 3 of which are still in production, including the ongoing forerunner Sazae-san. The show in 4th place, Oyako Club, concluded in 2013, with 1,818 episodes, just 37 more than Doraemon. Doraemon is very much a children's show, but not one that talks down to them. It's a surprisingly earnest take on how children act and feel, and lets the characters bring out their imaginations via Doraemon's various gadgets. In that sense, it's comparable to Calvin and Hobbes, albeit with less existential dread and sarcasm. Doraemon built a steady foundation in the 70s and 80s, attracting writers, directors, and animators of esteem. That's true to this day, with Kawamori Genki, producer of Your Name and a personal favorite, Saint Youngman, writing the screenplay for Doraemon the Movie, Nobita's New Dinosaur, that came out in August of 2020 after a COVID-19 delay. 1979 also saw the release of no less than 6 related Doraemon TV specials. While largely just higher-budget TV-style episodes, it's proof positive of the tremendous franchise Doraemon was becoming. Merchandise flooded the market almost immediately after the TV release, with everything from lunchboxes to plush recreations of Doraemon stuffing store shelves. It was only natural then that TV specials would exist to help feed the burgeoning appetite of Japanese children for everything the Big Blue Cat had to offer. Sadly, as of this writing, this adaptation of Doraemon has never aired in Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, or the United States, despite repeated attempts to license it for those markets. There was a brief effort to dub it by Sinar in 1985 that saw it retitled The Adventures of Albert and Sydney, which would broadcast via CBC TV8 in Barbados. Sadly, the broadcast is largely considered lost media, with only a few episodes surviving, having never been preserved or released in other markets. As to the specials, these are regularly collected as Doraemon specials on DVD and other formats, and there would be 30 TV specials from producer Shunei Animation over the run of the original TV series. Like all other Doraemon things from this period, though, the specials are sadly difficult to get a full scope of in English, owing to having no official overseas release and only middling support from fan translation groups. Even bootleggers have only seen mild success, with Malaysian company Speedy Video being the foremost, having produced an illegal dub on VCD sometime in the early 2000s. In a world where cartoon mice have a virtual stranglehold over children's media, the planet really is split between Doraemon in the East and Mickey in the West. The twain meet in India, however, where in a stroke of irony, Doraemon airs on Disney+. And on that note of international flavor, Josephina the Whale is adapted from a book of the same name, authored originally in Spanish by José María Sánchez Silva, with the titular whale, Josephina, as the invisible friend of series protagonist Santiago, aka Santi. She helps him overcome shyness and other childhood difficulties through exploring his troubles via his imagination. Josephina can also fly and change size, which really aids in how to best attack each new problem. Yoyama Kunihiko was the principal director on the series, assisted by veteran Nita Yoshikata, who had previously worked on horror comedy series Gegege no Kitaro. Yoyama would go on to direct multiple iterations of another series where insecure children are taught courage through interactions with make-believe animals, that one being Pokemon. Here, however, Yoyama and Nito's style present a combat-free take on the concept, with Josephina teaching Santi how to do things like talk to other children, especially the girl he likes, or cope with his precocious antagonist of a younger sister. While not especially memorable, Josephina is nonetheless a touching tale built for children, and some good light viewing that explores childhood struggles for acceptance and confidence across 23 episodes. It's indicative of a simpler time, but with themes that can still resonate today, and this one came to us via production house Kokusai Igasha, who would go on to adapt another Spanish work, Don Quixote, the following year in Zucoque Night, Don de la Mancha. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Doing so really helps us out. And we also have a Patreon where you can toss us a few bucks to build the show. That's it for this episode of the Anime Archive Project. Join us next time for the first animated adaptation of Ultraman, the baseball classic star of the Giants, and a virtually unknown and forgotten show that nobody has ever heard of, Mobile Suit Gundam. Thanks for watching!